So the clowns over at Fox News are just absolutely thrilled that we live in a country where people are free to work multiple jobs because one job doesn't give them a stable a standard of living. There's this concept called freedom from versus freedom to that exists in political philosophy, and it relates to positive and negative freedoms, okay? So positive liberty is the freedom to do something, and negative liberty is the freedom from being stopped by other people from doing something. So the point is there's different types of liberty, and sometimes the freedom to do something is actually only relevant because there's a lack of freedom somewhere else. So here's an example. If I say, it's great to have the freedom in the United States to work for whichever company gives you the best health insurance, a counterpoint would be, hold on a second. It's terrible to lack the freedom in the United States to be able to just work whatever job is the most rewarding job without being constrained by worrying about losing your health insurance. That's the way I would see it, okay? This gets us to Fox News. Now, if I said to you, if you look at the numbers of people in the United States who are working multiple jobs, is that a form of freedom to work as many jobs as you want? Or is that actually a reflection of the lack of freedom that stagnant wages and a lack of living wages place on people and force them into having to work multiple jobs? I consider the working multiple jobs thing an indicator of the lack of freedom that too many workers in the United States experience, which gets us to the Fox News perspective on this issue, where absolute and total farcical clowns Pete Hegseth and Ainsley Earthardt are just gushing. They're literally thanking God about how wonderful it is that we live in a country where people can work multiple jobs. And it's mind-blowing that this is actually an analysis that resonates with millions of people in this country. Take a look.
You know what Kamala Harris says is so disingenuous. For most of my life, I've worked 2 or 3 or 4 types of jobs, of sources of income. Right. Today, you can do that more flexibly. How many people do you know who do something and then maybe in their free time they drive an Uber or they do something else to bring in extra cash? Thank God we live in the kind of country where we have the innovation and flexibility, where you can bring in money from different places and do different things.
When I'm in an Uber and you talk to them, you get to know them. Many of them do say they're doing this to make a little extra money, and then we start talking. Well, how much extra, do you mind if I ask, do you make a week? And it's enough to pay for their kids to take an extra swim class, this one guy told me, or it's enough to put a little bit of money aside for their kids to go to college. I love those types of people. My dad worked several jobs. If he had the opportunity to make a little extra, he would.
These people are truly sick. I mean, it's not inspiring that so many people have to work second jobs and third jobs. It would be inspiring to live in a country where people didn't have to do that, right? This is like those supposedly heartwarming, inspirational stories about how great Americans are because when little Jimmy needed a prosthetic leg because of a medical condition, Jimmy's classmates and teachers came together to fundraise and do bake sales to raise money. What a great country. No, it's disgusting that one of the richest countries in the world makes the reality one where Jimmy couldn't just get the prosthetic leg and needed money from his classmates and from teachers and from the parents of classmates buying muffins at a bake sale. It's backwards, okay? And I actually want to go further. This multiple job status quo that's so common actually reinforces the system we have. I've talked about this in my segments about types of activism that go beyond just signing a petition or calling your elected official. I've said before, corporations have huge disproportionate control over our systems, the legal system, the judicial system, media, everything. They maintain control in part by making sure that there's a system in which the average person doesn't go protest, doesn't demand change, doesn't participate in strategic defaults or mass rallies in urban centers. And one of the best ways to make sure people don't do that people don't protest and people don't demand change, is if they can't even miss a day of work, because that would be 2 or 3 jobs that they might get fired from. Or they can't miss a day of work because they can't buy food if they miss that day of work. That's a really great way to make sure people don't show up and actually protest and demand real change. And if you're in a situation where you even need multiple jobs, then you are very unlikely to have the wherewithal and resources to go and protest and demand changes to the system that caused you to need 2 or 3 jobs in the first place. This is a self-reinforcing feedback loop. And I mean, listen, I don't know the Fox News hosts who said it's just so inspiring to live in a country. Thank God we live in a country where people can work 10 jobs if that's what they want to do. They may be useful idiots. They may be actual cogs in the wheel, deliberately reinforcing the system. It doesn't really matter, okay? The effect is that they are reinforcing the system that big corporations have already done a pretty damn good job at reinforcing. Really disturbing and disgusting stuff.